My name is Andrew Cleary, and you are listening to the F1 Podcast.
What's up, everyone? It is Ricci here of the F1 Podcast. Today is August 23, 2023, and we are back from summer break. Andrew and Erica are here to join me. The squad is back. Hello, everyone. How's it going? How was your break?
Very eventful.
Uneventful, no silly season.
Andrew, we saw some big news on social media. Would you like to share?
Yes, I tied the knot, as kids say these days. I am officially engaged with my beautiful to-be bride, Brett. So we're very excited for the next chapter of our lives together.
Tied the knot, and I was like, "Did you also get married? What?"
I don't know. It pretty much, like, once you put the ring on it, say it's like you're. It's just a formality at that point, going through the ceremony.
What's that term that, like, if you don't have the ceremony, elope? Is that it?
Yeah, elope.
I was like, did you guys all do that in 1 week? Anyways, okay.
Could have, you never know. Semi-tied the knot, let's say.
So anyways, like, congratulations, Andrew. Very excited for you both. And I know we're going to have a couple of drinks to celebrate that in a month's time. Also, we are 22 followers away from 600 on Instagram. And I think there's, 8 days left of August. I mean, we're going to have to keep pushing, but let's try to get to 600 by September 1st. So we all really appreciate all the support everyone has been giving us so far. It's been a pretty interesting kind of quiet summer on a couple of things, but, we're excited to kind of get back into the Dutch Grand Prix. I mean, I tried to do a recording to celebrate our birthday last week, and it took me like 10 minutes just to record that 1 minute and 30-second bit, just so we might be a little rusty this time around. Now we finished the summer break. Now we're going to go into the remaining races of the season, kind of where we stand at the mid-season review. Max Verstappen and Red Bull have been dominating galore, winning 12 out of the 12 races, 10 going to Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez winning 2. So I guess we have a couple of questions here, and let me just open it up to everybody. Who has impressed you so far in terms of drivers this season? I think there's been a lot of interesting battles in the midfield, but I think there's been a couple of names. So I'm just going to open up to the floor for you guys.
Impressed. So, it's tough. Like, when a team dominates, where you have 12 wins of Grand Prix and then they've won every sprint race, I think you just have to say a huge shout out to Red Bull and Adrian Newey for making, like, probably one of the best cars we'll ever see don the tracks of Formula One. I don't see anything stopping them this year for the rest of the year, especially when other teams are starting to develop their cars for next season. I would honestly, in a weird way, would love to see them go 22 for 22, win every sprint race, and just dominate, just absolutely dominate the rest of the season and just showcase, beat every team record. I think they can get up towards like 986 team total points if they were to go 1-2s with fastest laps and winning sprints for the remainder of the season. So that would be insane. It would blow Mercedes' 765 point season out of the water. And if Max just keeps setting all of his records, we might be witnessing the greatest season of domination ever to dawn Formula One.
That is an insane number of points for a single team to have. And as much as people know, I'm all about, like, let's get some variety in there. I kind of want to see it now that I know that that's a possibility. I want to see how absurdly high they can set the record for this.
It's interesting just to see, and especially for me, who was in Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix, just how much of a jump that Max can achieve when he's in that car. Because he's been winning races, whether if it's like 22 seconds, 34 seconds, we're kind of seeing it all. I really hope he doesn't win in Italy. That would be nice if Ferrari can at least do well there. But it's been pretty remarkable to see Red Bull kind of just achieve this kind of stature that not a lot of teams can say they've done before. But I think some kudos needs to go to a couple other drivers in the grid. And I think one for me, Fernando Alonso, for someone that I've criticized before, and I bite my tongue when I say this, I personally did not think that him moving to Aston Martin was going to be the great decision. Little do we know, things have changed.
Didn't you say like he was going to be out by like the summer break at one point?
You lose.
he would have been out. I thought he was going to go to like pull a Kimi Räikkönen, go drive somewhere else. But yeah, he's sitting at 149 points. In theory, if both the Red Bull drivers were disqualified, he would be leading the current Formula One grid right now.
God dang.
I mean, as an Aston Martin fan, it's a breath of fresh air to have a talented driver like Fernando Alonso be the clear number one, scoring 76% of our team's points so far this season, and having over 100-point gap to his teammate by the halfway mark. He's the reason why we're like where we are in the constructors in terms of P3 in that area, because without him, we would be fighting for P6, P7 potentially, right? And it's good to see that, to have him there and just be able to kind of bring this team and overachieve with the car.
I think it's pretty cool too. Like, I'm sure I've brought this up before, but the fact that he did retire and take a season off to come back, I was always kind of wondering if we would see him kind of really at the front of the pack ever since that happened. Like, he had a couple years at Alpine really kind of struggling, although that's as much to do with the team as anything else. But you do wonder, like, he had a year off. Is this all we're going to get? He's moving to Aston Martin, which is another typically kind of like midfield team, not really leading the charge. You wonder if you're just going to get more of the same. I've been pleasantly surprised, and I kind of love that. I mean, I know everyone jokes that in his mind, he's still way younger after that one accident when he thought he was a kid again. But you know what? Even if that is the case, just keep trucking, man. Keep pushing for it and put some pressure on the other teams while you're still racing.
And just come to think, just to add on to Erica's point there, like he accomplished 5 podiums in the first 6 races in a car that he's never driven before, and it was kind of just had to go with it. I think one comment here that we have is like Oscar Piastri. And, I do kind of see that, especially in the last couple of races, that I wouldn't say has he completely impressed me so far. And this is probably the problem for me is McLaren had so much momentum going into the summer, especially with the last kind of recent successes, particularly at the British Grand Prix and Hungary. Like, I hope, especially for Oscar too, like that kind of can continue into the next part of the season. Because like he clearly was showing some good drives when the car was actually there.
Yeah, I have my hopes for him, because even when the car was underperforming, we did still see him pull that car into the points on a couple of occasions. Earlier in the season, when we were in Australia, he finished P8. We also have a P10 finish in Monaco, which is just before we kind of started to turn the corner here. So he's 11th in the driver championship against people who are much more tenured. Like, he's ahead of Pierre Gasly, he's ahead of Albon and Hülkenberg, Bottas. And granted, while some of these people are not driving the best cars out there, like, we've commented on how impressed we are with Albon's driving. So very exciting to kind of see that we've got a rookie who there was like so much talk and craziness. Like, you think about this time last year, and it's when the drama with Alpine was going down. And so it does seem like it was a gamble worth taking for McLaren, and he's really showing that he earned that seat. Even though, of course, I am very happy that Daniel Ricciardo is back and was kind of done dirty, but I digress.
Overall, though, I just love to commend, as much at the beginning of the season, it was, how they treated Danny Rick at the end of the season. I kind of smirked when we saw McLaren just be like the joke of the paddock, pretty much, for the first 6-7 races of the season, in the sense that they were late on their development. It was kind of like a just desserts of what happened, but I can't help give them enough praise to how they turned that around. Like, really pretty much building a rocket ship in the back of the car for a few weeks. I don't know if you both saw it, but it was the Monterey Car Show was this past weekend, and Zach Brown had dinner with Adrian Newey, and Adrian Newey was wearing a McLaren hat, like a papaya McLaren hat, and Zach Brown was wearing a Red Bull Racing hat.
Oh, really?
Just imagine what
that
universe would have been like. But honestly, the last few weeks, it looks like Adrian Newey's kind of like rubbed off on the McLaren car, because they've been absolutely rapid, and their points have been proven. 2 podium finishes for Lando back to back in Silverstone and then Hungaroring, and then Piastri finishing on the podium in the sprint, and unfortunately got tagged by Sainz there in Belgium. But what could have been another great race for Piastri there, should that not happen. So I'd like to commend it. He, as a rookie driver, is really showing his mettle out there, And he's really forcing, I think, Logan Sargent to start waking up into Williams and try to start making out some team results there for points.
The whole season cannot be sunshine and rainbows. Who has been the biggest disappointment? And for those that have not been following, we've already lost one driver who got demoted. And I think let's just start with Nick DeVries. Like, there was a lot of hope and admiration, and he proved himself when he had that one stint in a Williams car, and he's no longer in a Formula One car right now. And Daniel Ricciardo took a spot.
It's kind of crazy to see how little time he had in seat. I think because he was someone who wasn't necessarily coming in fresh to Formula One, like he had been a reserve driver for a few other teams. He's a little older. Like we said, he'd had opportunities in cars before. And I think the expectations on him were a lot higher than they expected. And like, as cutthroat as Red Bull is, we've seen what the last couple years at AlphaTauri were like. So I'm kind of curious, how do you guys think that went down? Do you think he was fairly treated, or was it maybe a little bit too harsh and too soon to make that call?
Yeah, I mean, like I have two trains of thoughts on this, because on one hand, I think it's just that's what Red Bull does, right?
Yeah.
They're so cutthroat by nature, right? They want the best performance out of everything. And to be fair, at the beginning of the season, we're thinking, oh, maybe he can really show Yuki how it's kind of done, right? Being a Formula E champion and coming into the F1 world. But clearly that script was flipped when Yuki kind of showed the dominant side of the race car over Nick. And it's tough, right? Because I think Red Bull all along was trying to get Danny Rick back into his seat because of how unfortunate he was treated at McLaren, right? Coming out and then, wanting to have him on the grid, not only just for driver purposes, but I think for marketing dollars overall in the sport, especially for Red Bull, right? That is he has more of a play there, right? So unfortunately that those politics kind of led also with poor performance kind of led to DeVries's demotion, which is unfortunate. But in a way, I think if he was to turn back the clock, I think he'd try and push to get a seat at Williams before Sargent did. Because I think he would have been better in that type of team environment with Albon. I know that he probably doesn't bring as much money as Logan did with the US sponsors, and have Dorilton being, the capital firm in that sense, where the US driver in, because that was the money that's where the money was flowing at the time. But if there was any pull for him to kind of become a Williams driver, I think that would have been the play for him.
Yeah, I think you kind of took the words out of my mouth. I think that is the cutthroat of just like how Red Bull is, because we saw that with Pierre Gasly, we saw that with Alex Albon, we saw that with Danny Crea. Like, the list can go on and on of the amount of drivers that have just kind of just been quote unquote sewered, I guess is the term that I'm looking for. Yeah, and even just the seeing the kind of the reunion tour that Daniel Ricciardo has, and especially in a car like that he's driving in, it kind of just goes to show, is like, was this really the plan all along? Let's talk about some other drivers. I know Carlos Perez. We wrote Sergio Perez here, and even though that he's P2 in the standings here, do we really see that it's a disappointment for him? For me, I think one of my biggest things that I've kind of noticed is how he can't keep up with Max Verstappen, and he pretty much has identically the same car.
I also think just the qualifying performance is what really has people kind of scratching their heads a bit, right? Like, yeah, sure, he's finished really high overall in like these other races, and he's got 2 wins under his belt, which is 2 more wins than anyone else on the grid. But wouldn't you expect this guy, if he's in this car where Max is so dominant everywhere, to also be, if Max is P1 because of the talent, well, you'd expect Checo to be P2 forever and always, even in qualifying, so to speak, because this car is so crazy, right? I don't know. That's where I think people feel like he's underperforming, is because of that.
Well, and just like, I think that's the big thing, is even we saw in a lot of other like teams, whether if it was like Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, or even like when it was Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello, they're always like 1-2 for the most part. And even that, if Checo's even had bad qualifying, you can't just be expected every time to go, oh, I'm going to have a bad qualifying, I'm going to start at the back of the pack. Yes, it's easy in that car per se, but like you can't, that shouldn't be the expectation every race for a dominant car like the Red Bull one is.
Well, also too, I think he kind of put more pressure on himself at the beginning of the season by saying that he could compete for a world championship in that car. And I think it's evident to know that Max is obviously clearly the number one driver, and that that won't change as long as Max is in Red Bull, right? But I think he set some out of world expectations for him, which rightfully so, right? You want to show some confidence going into the season, and at the start of the season, having won 2 of 4 races and kind of having that lead for initial part of the season was key. But it all unraveled at Monaco, I think, when he got lapped not once but twice by his teammate, and that kind of started the downward spiral for him, kind of contend for the championship. And Max has put himself on another level where he hasn't lost since Azerbaijan. I mean, any race since Azerbaijan. He has a 100 and I think it's like 25-point lead over his teammate.
Wow.
125 points over his teammate. And we're halfway done the season.
I totally forgot that he made those comments at the beginning of the season. That kind of puts another bit of light shone on it there, eh?
Yeah, and I think he kind of dug himself a hole that he's unfortunately not been able to get out of. So he really needs to kind of, I think it would be great to see him do really well in these next couple races, maybe win 1 or 2 of the remaining 10. Just to, over Max, to say, hey, look, Max, like, you're not the only dominant force here. Like, be it would be great just to compete with Max, right? In that case, and take a couple of these races from him coming up.
So I think, speaking about like seats, because I think that's like the most interesting part going in, but just some honorable or dishonorable mentions that were biggest disappointments that we thought of. George Russell and Carlos Sainz are not having the greatest of seasons compared to their teammates. They are technically still top 10, but they should be doing better. And Alpine's management team, just the cluster, the cluster that happened with the whole Otmar Satmer, if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but just
it all starts with, like, when I read that Laurent Rossi, when he stepped down, he was the one that kind of handled all the he was around that team that handled the Piastri negotiations. I'm like, just downhill from all the way there, and just, calling out his team for not having the correct car this year. And it's just been an utter nightmare for Alpine, who sit well back of 5th place and hope to make a turnaround charge in that case.
And actually, this is a funny comment, just we'll get into the next question, but how clean the races have been so far. We need action. What do you mean by that, Andrew?
I mean, like, there's like ever since Australia, there hasn't been like any red flags. There haven't been any like timely safety cars that made 2021 so special. Like, come on.
So basically,
we need a Go Tifi out there. We need just like like a 10 lap left safety car. It bounces the pack back up and has a race.
So what you're telling us is we should hashtag draft Latifi again.
Pretty much.
Bring back Otifi. Hashtag petition.
We'll figure out what the right hashtag is for that, but like I'm totally like on board for that.
Someone yoink this man out of his masters.
Yeah,
just give him the masters at that point and tell him to come back.
Listen, go Latifi. I have an MBA. It's not worth it. Don't do it.
Speaking from experience.
Speaking from experience. It looks nice on a sheet of paper. It's fine, but that's it.
Do a barrel roll.
Who is on the hot seat for the second half of the season? This just sucks because I think the only Canadian on the track is probably on the hot seat.
Yeah, his ass better be burning, because he needs to buck up here a little bit. And I understand for the first few races, the both broken wrists affected him for sure, but I'm pretty sure he's back to near full health. So it's about time he starts pulling up and pull up his pants and stop giving everybody excuses to say it's daddy's money that's keeping you at the team. Come on, show your medal. Let's get some good results. Beat your teammate a few times too would be ideal to showcase that you're up on the same level as Alonso.
And like, as much as daddy's money is, I'm sure, helping him stay there, like, it is still a team, and Lawrence Stroll will start getting pressure from other people. Like, as much as it's probably his decision in a lot of ways because he has so much influence, like, ultimately, if you've got some of the rest of your team like threatening to quit, really questioning what's going on. You're getting pressure. If it starts like really getting picked up in the news media and the outlets and stuff, you got to show people that you deserve to have the seat outside of just a little guardian angel floating around in the top seat, you know?
I think for me, has been really interesting is Kevin Magnussen. Earlier in the season, I thought he was going to do significantly better than Nico Hulkenberg. And we're seeing in moments on the track where Hulkenberg has been like easily beating him in qualifying and doing like significantly better in that car. I'm not saying that they're having a great season per se, but 9 points versus 2. He's just been very interesting to kind of see that battle. I mean, Haas has not always been the top-notch team every weekend, but just like what's going on there, Kat Magnussen? Like what's going on?
It does raise a couple of eyebrows, I think, especially so many people being like, oh, well, Kevin raced with the team. He probably has a better idea of what's going on. And he was with the team last year, whereas Hulkenberg's like new to Haas. So I've been a little bit surprised too. Like, granted, Nico's points all come from a single race, and Kevin, as much as it was just like finishing 10th, he did get points in 2 races, but the qualifying especially has been like vastly different. Like, this is not the guy we saw on pole position in Brazil last year when you see him in this Haas right now. It's a very different driver behind the wheel.
And Haas in general confused me because 2018 was their best season. They scored 93 points, finished 5th, right? And you think like, do you think Gene would want to put some money into the team at that point? They find ways to cut costs, and they just don't make that many investments in the team. And it's frustrating because there's a lot of potential there, showcasing that they can finish in the midfield, then I just think they need to. Maybe this partnership with Alfa Romeo will help out quite a bit in terms of that development dollars, but it's a frustrating. I'd be frustrated if I'm a Haas fan because they've had success, and they scored, I think, 93 points in 2018. They haven't even clipped 93 total points since then.
Oof.
Like total from like 2019 to this season, they scored 79 points as a team. Like just put some damn money into it, Gene.
Or find someone else to help give you that money in order to turn it around. Like, come on.
I know. It's a frustrating mark.
So we've kind of already talked about Perez, like just given. So I think we could skip him. I think the former Red Bull seat, Daniel Ricciardo, I think we did mention him, but coming back, but do we see him as a replacement? Do we really see him on the hot seat right now? Or is he just trying to figure out his future for the next season?
I want to say he's trying to figure out his future in the sense that if he is going to come back, does he come back with AlphaTauri? Because clearly not. I'm pretty sure they'll keep Perez for next season, regardless of how he finishes, just based on he's been able to drive that. He's been the best number 2 they've had since Max Verstappen kind of has technically become the number 1. And why ruin a good thing when they're about to set some crazy records this season overall? And I think they'll keep Checo. It's a matter. I don't know where Daniel ends up next year. I honestly really can't tell you. And I think these final 10 races are a really big indication of where he goes. Like, either he will become a 3rd driver again for Red Bull, or he might secure a contract with a team in the midfield or below. But he's got to prove that now going forward.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to think because, one thing that we've noticed last year compared to this year is a lot of the seats moving, and a lot of the seats kind of moving, like, when that first person retires or somebody announces they're moving to another team. We didn't really get to see that this much here. I know there's rumors of Carlos Sainz going to Audi when they come in. I think those are kind of been building up. Yeah, you would think this summer they produce that, but it's been a quiet summer. More of the rumor mill than the actual like announcements of seats.
Yeah, we're not getting the silly season that we got last year, and I kind of miss it. Honestly, the last 2 years we've had a lot go on over the summer break, and really nothing other than Otmar leaving. Truly,
if there was any time to have a silly season based on everyone's kind of viewpoint of the first 12 races, it would have been now.
Yeah.
So other than Red Bull basically winning every race, is there a track that stood out, a race that stood out for you? Like, yes, it was nice to go to Canada again, like go to Montreal again and watch Grand Prix, but it was not as exciting as last year's race. So I kind of want to look at another track particularly. I think like we have here Australia, Silverstone, Bahrain. I don't know who wants to start, what track stood out for them.
I can't tell who you're pointing at because
You.
I'm sure I appear in a different spot on my screen than I do on yours.
You.
Cool. So for me, one of the races that stood out was Silverstone. I mean, this is always a really fun race. It's a big event, huge for the UK, but by this point in the season, quite a few teams had brought some upgrades to their cars. So we actually saw a little bit more excitement, maybe not from the front with the Red Bull, but from some of the other folks just in behind, right? Like we saw the super good looking and very competitive McLaren kind of come out of the blue. At this point, we'd seen some changes to Mercedes as well, and they were starting to look a little speedier and kind of come into the fold a little more. Of course, we've all been excited about Aston Martin, so it was just nice to see different logos and cars jockeying for position at the front, as opposed to just kind of like Red Bull running away with the race. Like as much as, Max does consistently win by a lot, it was more exciting to see who was going to end up on podium. Were we going to see, a couple more McLarens up there as opposed to, I was so close. Like I was so hopeful that Piastri would get P3 and like get his first podium in his rookie season. But nonetheless, like it was a really fun race to watch, like to see Lewis get up there for his home GP. Like that's always so meaningful for him. So that was one that definitely kind of made me kind of excited and keen to keep watching the rest of the season, even though we've got some dominance by a couple of the teams out front.
For me, I thought Australia was just one of those just wild, wacky races, right? I mean, 3 red flags in the session. Of course, when we're trying to watch it here in North America, it's like 2 a.m. The race doesn't end till like 4:35, and I fell asleep during it. And you're at the point like, what happened? And you wake up, you go backwards. You're like, how is it 3 red flags? Right? But it also had just an absolute injustice with Carlos Sainz picking up that ghost 5-second penalty when they didn't even like call the lap, and finishing under the SC, and everybody just screaming as quickly to the line as they could once he passed so that he could finish inside that 5-second gap, where he went from like P3 down to like P11 as a result. So it was just one of those silly races that had a lot of action, but an unfortunate FIA justice kind of put a little sour note on it.
I just figured out what my favorite race of the season was. It was Bahrain, when there was 35 of us at Trinity Common to kick off the season. And we were so excited thinking that it was going to be a competitive season. You lose. And seeing Andrew's face when Aston Martin got their first podium of the season. Yeah, that was, I think, by far. And the bar was sold out. Like literally people tried to book tables 4 days before, and talking to the management, they're like, yeah, we're stacked. And especially we did have some good racing at Bahrain. Whether if it was like Max and Sergio and like Fernando getting on the podium. I'm just trying to look. Carlos Sainz looked pretty decent too. I think overall, I mean, we had high hopes the first race of the season, and I can go back to listen to that episode and let's just jump. Go ahead.
Also, lots of crying from you and I, Ricci, with Leclerc and Piastri DNFing in that one. But like, sure, man, nothing but good times. All right.
I was enjoying my time, and then Erica's back there seeing Lando's 6 pit stop race. Just ugh.
The mimosas were flying. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I showed up there. I was like, I'll have French toast and 1 mimosa. And then like stuff started happening. I was like, I will have more than 1 mimosa at this race. This is not the finest of moments for McLaren, but we're turning it around.
Absolutely.
It's coming back around.
Let's go into, speaking about races, the Dutch Grand Prix this weekend. First race back from the break. Curious to see how everyone is going to, who's going to have jitters the first race back from the summer break. I feel like this is going to be so easy for the Red Bull team. It's technically, yes, the Dutch fans. as one of the reporters said, this feels like this is another Red Bull track in itself, but just the amount of fans that go, whether at Zandvoort, Spa, or even Austria. So, and I think that the track is to be held. They have the contract till 2025. So we're going to see some great racing continuing here. I think that's going to be the first thing for me, is just seeing who is going to be, who's going to get out their jitters. Also, Ferrari mentioned that Robert Schwartzman is going to replace Carlos Sainz at the first free practice session this year. So it'd be interesting to see how he does at FP1. I think this is the first time that somebody's stepping in this season. Reserve driver stepping in, because I don't think anyone has else in other races. So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to this race weekend.
Crofty on a podcast, I think it was Sky Sports. I think Sky Sports made an interesting point about the season and the sprint format overall. This ties into reserve drivers, because he was thinking how, for the sprint weekends, it would be fun if those sprint races were competed by the reserve drivers.
Oh, I like that.
Ooh.
Because it gives them a chance to get on track, keep their racecraft up in that regards. And it would just be something different and exciting, I think, for the fans to watch, and maybe make it like that own specialized championship, like a reserve sprint championship in that regards. Because I don't know if like everybody enjoys the sprint weekend format from the F1 driver's perspective. And it kind of like, to me, it mutes the point of why we even have, like, it's just another race for the weekend just to add on to watch. So I think Crofty made an incredible point saying have these reserve drivers compete in the sprint format alone.
Cool to see how different drivers do in the cars.
It'll be fun just to see the reserve drivers get some airtime, because who watches FP1 when they do it? Not many, right?
I was gonna say you do, but that's right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I'll tune in, but it'd be fun to watch. That's free practice. There's no racing going on, right? It's just kind of a bunch of qualifying laps that they do overall, get some data for the team, and that's it. Like, it would be fun to see them race.
It kind of makes me think of there was a stand-up comedian who talked about for the Olympics how if you've got someone, say, like running the 100-meter dash, like have just a normal person beside everyone so you can understand like how good these people are. And as much as like the reserve drivers are obviously close to the apex of the sport, like it's not just like Joe Schmo hopping in a car with his neck snapping all over the place as they're going around there. But it would be interesting to kind of have that comparison of like, really, what is the difference between a reserve driver and someone who's actually in seat, right? So yeah, I think that would be fun. That'd be super cool.
So I'm gonna post. I'm definitely gonna post this on our social media channels, and even on Spotify. I'm gonna ask the question, and I'm curious, and I really want to hear what our fans think. That should reserve drivers take the regular driver's spot in sprint races going forward? I think that's definitely cool. Can we just talk about how the trophy this weekend literally looks like the Holy Grail? I feel like it's something out of like, it's literally like the Monty Python and the Holy Grail moment right now.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I was gonna say, I was thinking Indiana Jones was like, no, this is too nice. This is what turns you into dust.
Excited for when Red Bull break that.
You mean if Lando breaks that?
Well, they did break the last one on their own accord.
That's true.
So one of the two are going to break it, guaranteed.
So over under, are we saying it's a broken trophy?
I think we're going over 0.5 trophy smashes this weekend for sure. But yeah, Dutch Grand Prix, I don't think it's going to be any shock to see that Max is going to absolutely destroy the race. He's so good here. He's won both at Zandvoort. Checo has not really been strong at Zandvoort, to my recollection. So I think it's going to be maybe it'd be a good weekend to get a turnaround. But I've heard so many rumors about, Ferrari going to be the second fastest car this weekend. Aston Martin be the second fastest car. Mercedes, McLaren. Like, I'm excited to see who is actually the second fastest car this weekend with all these upgrades coming in that are supposed to be coming in for the race. And I think I'm just excited to get back into the F1 weekend groove, right? Turning the TV on Saturday to watch qualifying, following it on X and Instagram and Threads, kind of everyone's reactions to that. And then watching the race on Sunday and following their reactions to that as well. And then, seeing all the new memes that come from it, right? Just kind of getting back into that fun F1 groove that we haven't had for 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think I'll just add there, like my hopes are not like very high, just because I'm just really don't know what to expect from teams this weekend, other than like Red Bull's gonna take it away.
Yeah, truly. What else is there out there we don't know? Especially like you mentioned earlier, so many cars are now putting development toward next season. Like, are things gonna be that different? Is someone just gonna be like, we said we did that, but haha, no, lol, JK, more stuff coming out? Because that would be such a Mercedes move to pull. But yeah, I don't know. Zandvoort's always fun to watch people race at. It's such a fast circuit. I love that it's short and tiny, and you get kind of like all kinds of chaos and motion going around there. So I'm just happy we got some racing back.
Oh, we're gonna have rain there.
Ooh, we haven't had that
Ooh.
before. I'm game.
Yeah, I see rain in the forecast.
Ooh la la, I love it.
Hot dip. My goodness. Hot dip.
How many races have rained this season?
Oh, that's a good question.
I feel like every weekend we've talked about how it's gonna rain.
There's been a few for sure. Like,
Canada,
yep.
Spa,
Yes.
Hungary.
Did Monaco?
Monaco did.
Yeah, and then they switched their tires.
Right.
Yes. So that's crazy. 4 to
Australia,
12
no.
already.
Bahrain, no. Saudi Arabia, no.
I don't think it rained in Azerbaijan, or
Azerbaijan,
Miami.
no. Miami, I don't think so.
Spain.
Let us know in the comment section.
These are all good
Let
questions.
us. Someone out there knows. We don't know, but someone out there knows. But either way, even though we can think of like 4 off the top of our heads, 4 out of 12 is, I feel like, an inordinate number of races to have like very notable rain so far. So
And like the back half of the season, you can guarantee Singapore is probably going to be a wet race. Japan's probably going to be a wet race. Brazil is always like an absolute crapshoot of a race in terms of weather. It could be either really sunny and beautiful or just pure soaked on the racetrack. And then maybe Vegas. JKL. Well, there's no rain in Vegas.
Yeah, no. But speaking about Vegas, they finally backed away from that charge fee they wanted to charge clubs and
thank God. Thank God. Like,
yeah, so the New York Post posted this suggesting that they've pumped the brakes on a controversial plan to force LA clubs to cough up millions of dollars. Mind you, the cheapest ticket prices available for the race are still $2,000.
People are going to pay that though.
Yeah. So Formula One has charged similar fees at other street course like Monaco. But the Vegas, they claim that casinos are looking for high rollers to come and gamble, and that they backed off because they believe the obstructions placed in front of businesses regarding license fees and could potentially reduce the capacity of venues according to city fire codes.
Well, Monaco has such a history, right? I don't like it. Like people are going to go regardless, and like people, this is the inaugural one.
Yeah.
So why not get as many people's eyes on this race as possible, right? And because then, as they say, cash is king, and the money is going to be flowing that weekend.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what it'll be like next year, because Miami was already so much less expensive in the second year than the first. But I am also excited because they weren't allowing celebrities to like block off so many seats around them like they did at Miami. So I think we're actually going to see like a really cool crowd of just like locals, people traveling, all kinds of stuff too. So I think it's going to be like the party to be at this season. And I can't wait. They've already closed all the streets because they were doing promo and filming everything, and they're already getting ready for it now. I have friends that were there for a bachelor party in June, and they've already got the wheels in motion to get things ready.
Speaking of which, did you see Red Bull's marketing video about Vegas? I thought that was quite unique. You know, Christian Horner playing James Bond was quite fun, and I would love to know how they got that car up on the roof.
It's like how you did
the
that.
RB8 just sitting up on top of the roof.
So I just quickly checked just for the viewers know. So hospitality for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday comes out to $10,000, almost $11,000 Canadian.
I was wondering why your face was going like an absolute disgust and shock and horror.
Doesn't even include Sunday,
Brutal.
Which is probably even double of that price.
Oh,
anyways. Yeah. But yeah, so let's just jump back into it. I think it's going to be really interesting to see. Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what's going to happen in Las Vegas. But I think, honestly, I'm happy just to be back into Formula One this weekend. So I think on that note, let's just end there. Thank you everybody for coming back. We've missed you. We're excited to kind of get back into things. and Andrew and Erica. It's been a while. Love seeing your face. I mean, Erica, I saw you last week. Andrew, I think I'm seeing you in a couple of weeks anyways. So on that note, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Andrew and Erica, always a pleasure. Andrew, it's been a while. Can you send us off like old days?
Absolutely. It has been a while, but I cannot say thank you enough to everybody who has listened to season 3, episode 22 of the F1 podcast. If you are wanting to follow more great F1 content, please subscribe to our Instagram page at f1.podcast. Follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, where you listen to your podcast, as well as Ricci YouTube channel. We are back, baby, officially back for the Zandvoort Grand Prix, or the Dutch Grand Prix, this weekend, and we cannot wait to come back with our analysis of it next week and kick off the rest of this season with a bang, and probably a Red Bull win. But nevertheless, have a great day and enjoy the weekend.